Ladies and gentlemen, that was part one of our interview with Marc Barron. Doesn't that sound like we intended to do that? Nope. This is Zoom. And if you've watched Bill Maher, he had it for one of his guests. So I feel in good company.
Tune in next week.
Marc gave us this really brilliant overview of something people don't know necessarily about, and that's the tax breaks that you offer investors. We think, oh yeah, tax deductible. We think it almost sloughed off, but he was very detailed, which was marvelous. What kind of response have you gotten artistically? Your audience loved it, yes, but in terms of people reading it, in terms of people commenting on it, what kind of feedback have you gotten in terms of the industry folk?
Oh, everyone thinks it's something different and it's something very marketable. The team that we have assembled are all on board primarily because of the script. These are people I've worked with over the years, but I'll go back. I had mentioned Ellen Jacoby. My business partner and I were developing several projects, and we were down in Florida looking at some locations and had reached out to the Florida Film Commissioner, Elizabeth Wentworth, who said, oh yeah, we'll help you out and let us read the script and things like that. And then she introduced us to this casting director who read the script and said, oh my God, I want to be part of this project. Don't even look for another casting director.
Wow.
And usually casting directors want big retainers of $15,000, $20,000. All the team, my DP, in addition to being a sweetheart of a guy, he teaches cinematography. He is won numerous awards, Emmy Awards, Clios, the list goes on. And I've worked with him many, many years ago when I was just a lowly stand-in, and he read the script and he said, let's have coffee. And I said, well, you know, would you be comfortable working with me as a director? Because even though I'm not new to the business, which would be my first real directing, even though I've directed little theater and whatnot. And his answer goes, no, I read the script, you got this. And then he said, no, I've got notes. And when he opened up his notes, I went, oh my God, that's a lot of notes. He goes, no, these are good. Get rid of that.
So,
yep.
I always love it now that we're all at home and we have this wonderful technology to work with. Phones go off and toilets flush. My cat needed to be fed. It's the magic of television.
Yeah.
I feel like I should say chef of the future at certain points. Now you're being very self-effacing. You've been in this industry a really long time, and you have dealt with a lot of people at the Lambs. You've dealt with them in your own professional life. So you understand this business down to its heart.
I think so.
You're being self-effacing again. Just when you talk about your preparation for this, I think it's really, it's phenomenal how you are so set up for this. It's like all you need is a check. I know that sounds funny, but it is all in place. It's like on your mark, get set, go. You just need that check. Where are you looking to, once the doors open, now you say there's this little chance that people are now paying attention. I would think it's going to be a bigger chance because things have closed. Things aren't going to open the same way. I'm sure people need content. I'm sure people need to bring the audiences in, especially if we're talking film and television.
I think one big plus that we have is comedy.
Yep.
Right now, I think comedy is going to be high demand. I mean, if anybody thinks about what they've been watching all these weeks and months of being shut in, you know, you want to laugh, you want to escape. So you don't watch heavy dramas, you watch either some kind of fantasy, sci-fi, or you watch a comedy. And personally, I've been watching a lot of comedy that were not very funny. So
There's an interesting thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I was speaking to Sam Sokolow, and he had made a comment. He said he's been a no guy for a long time, but now he wants to be a yes guy because he wants to foster so many more talented people.
I watched that. I watched that episode of yours.
Note to self: you should talk to him. But so, do you think he's the minority or the majority? You think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to say, "Okay, wait a minute, I have to broaden my mind," and laugh. The audience has sat and watched all of this stuff, and maybe we're finally looking and saying, "You know, that's not very funny." And so maybe they're really going to look for quality humor.
I think the problem out there is that it's not whether it's humor or whether it's even funny. It's too much of the industry is only looking for people that already have established themselves. They're not opening doors.
Uh-huh.
So I watched the new series Space Force. It was okay. It should have been funnier. I watched one last night. I really recommend it if you haven't. It's on Amazon, called Upload. And it is it's funny, it's intelligent, it's got all the levels to it that you want to watch the next episode. But, you know, I hear from people, though, if you approach Amazon, they only want to hear from producers that they've already worked with.
Mm-hmm.
Part of I can understand, because in this new digital world, the good thing about the digital world is that anybody can make a film, but the bad thing about the digital world is anybody can make a film. And so there's a lot of bad stuff out there. So how do they determine where do they look first? And it's you know, it's part of it, as I always say, it's when you add up everything that's trying to get made, you create a lot of white noise. So how do you get above that? And that's by bigger budgets, getting a name actor, things like that. But then you fight all these other doors. You know, the gatekeepers are, everybody wants the next big hit, but nobody's really being open to looking for it.
You think that's going to change? You think this is like a wake-up call for everyone being sent to their room? That maybe it's
I think the whole industry is going to change in ways that people don't comprehend. I mean, first of all, there's going to be all the new pandemic protocols about how you actually make a film. You know, the unions are working on it. All the states are coming up with their own. But if you look what's happened over the last 3 months about how people watch film, go back to January when AMC announced they may be facing bankruptcy. You know, is that going to be the end of movie theaters? More and more people, it's so, you know, for under $1,000, for under $500, you can have a 50-inch TV with a blow-away sound system at home. Why do you need to go out and spend $15 for a movie ticket and $20 for a bucket of popcorn? You know, the studios have been always holding off on putting their movies into movie houses, but they came out with Trolls. They decided to put it directly to streaming. They made $200 million in 2 weeks.
Oh, sure.
They're
going, up for the same awards.
Right. And so and the Oscars are now going to start recognizing online content. So people are going to start thinking, do we need movie theaters anymore? I mean, I personally prefer movie in the theater. I like watching with other people. But so I think how we watch, or how they deliver the content, and I hate that word content, but that's changing. And that's going to then have an effect on changing the budget. Because my little $3 million in a streaming world probably has a better chance of making a profit than a $50 million film, because it needs to reach a wider audience. Is it going to change how we write the stories? Because now actors won't kiss and there won't be any extras. And so the whole industry is kind of trying to figure out where it's going. And it's been doing that for the last couple of years, but this is going to push it into new directions. I don't know where it's going. I mean, even TV commercials, everything. The one thing that hasn't changed is animation.
Sure. Well, that was always in a vacuum essentially anyway. So it's not like, damn, we have to pay the cartoon characters more money or something like that.
Well, but like this guy, Mike Reese, they used to all go to meet once a week in California to work on the next episode of The Simpsons. Now they're all Zooming it. They don't need to travel anymore. So the producers say, fine, we don't have to do that anymore. We'll Zoom from now on. We won't bring you in and travel.
I heard that from a lot of businesses. There's a lot of places that are giving up their real estate, saying, okay, our employees can work from home. And I've heard it from so many filmmakers. Okay, I'm working here, then I'm sending it over here, then they're going to fix it, send it back, then we're going to have a Zoom meeting, and then we're going to do this. I interviewed Marcus Slabine about a horror movie that he's doing under social distancing guidelines. I have no idea. I'm fascinated by what it's going to look like. But you're right. We're changing so completely. So we might see Megaballs on Netflix or something very soon.
Well, My original goal for the plan had been what we call a limited theatrical release. I was looking to have 1 or 2 screens in 10 cities and then onto streaming online. Because if you get good feedback on the screen, on the theater, that helps you sell it online. We even had enough money in the budget. We could four-wall it, meaning we could rent a few theaters. We even had plans on how we would create what we call event screenings, where it's kind of like, if you remember at the reading, people ask Q&A afterwards.
Yeah.
It would be the same thing. You do a screening, people pay to see it, and then afterwards you do a Q&A about the making of the film and what was it like. People want to do that. We were talking about having, because it's a story about lottery tickets, we'll have 50 lottery tickets available for the first people who come to the screening. We have a whole list of little things like that that we would do at these event screenings. You could carry some of that over into the streaming world. You could, have some streaming events where you talk about the film afterwards. But that's going to change everything. And then there was a really interesting article that some of the companies in the gaming world have mastered their software to make 3D location background. That you could just bring your actors onto a studio where the walls are all painted green or blue or whatever, have some marks out on the ground for them to hit, do the scene, and then this company will put in the background that it looks like they're talking on a street in Tokyo. And I understand Parasite, that did so well last year, that about 25% of that film was shot that way.
Oh my gosh, really? I just watched that. Really?
Yep.
It's very funny. There's a TV series a friend of mine is part of, and he had a lovely fireplace in his studio set, and I don't remember how it came up, but I said yes, and it was very nice, and the fireplace, and he said no, that was CGI.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
So you could have you could build a very small few panels of a set that the actors are confined in, and then in post you blow it out to Carnegie Hall. And they can do that now. The question is, when will it be cost effective? Well, if there's a couple of movies made where this is successful, then you'll have all the other companies come in. The competition will drive down the prices. So we're going to see when you go back to the movies in the 30s and 40s, they didn't film on locations.
No.
So it's kind of going back to that with the new technology that looks better.
Oh, that's great.
But will that trickle down to the lower independent film? Or when will it? Let's put it that way.
As fast as software manufacturers can create these things, is as fast as they'll get there. Maybe I'm being partial. I expect the independent film to return faster than the studio film, just because of pricing. $3 million might sound like a lot, but you're right.
Well,
it's not.
maybe not, because there are other factors. For example, one thing we're waiting on, we don't know what the new, shall we call them, pandemic protocols are and what they will cost.
Right. Okay.
So, for example, you take a film, a 3-person scene. Well, you have probably a 15-man crew. How do you divide them to not infect each other? How do you protect the actors in between the scenes? Who cleans the wardrobe and how? How do the actors get the hair and makeup done without being touched by another human being?
Right.
What about, the craft services? No more little, bowls of peanuts. That's going to have to change. All your lunches are going to have to be like an airplane. Everything's prepackaged and sealed. And all these little changes are going to cost money. And then there's insurance. The completion bond we mentioned before. Well, what if you're doing your film and you've shot 3 out of 4 weeks, and now your lead actor gets a bad case of COVID-19 and he can or she can no longer work, and you have now just stopped your production? Is the completion bond going to pony up the money you need to either recast and reshoot the whole film, or put everything on hold long enough until that actor can come back to work, assuming they can? Another issue is just the general insurance on the film. You have to have insurance to protect yourself for lawsuits. Sure. So now let's say you have that somewhat, working well-known actor, not a star, but it's just someone who works constantly, and they're on your set and they get COVID-19 and now they sue you. And so I have heard from one producer who's been attending meetings. He said the insurance companies are reacting just like they did for 9/11 by amending their policies. But the odds are you're going to now look at policies that will either have an out that says they won't pay that, but if you want that coverage, here's what it's going to cost. And I'm told now that that's going to probably double the cost of your insurance on your film, which affects your budget. And then another consideration in the low budgets, there are tiers within the union, because that's what I'm doing a SAG-AFTRA film. There are tiers. And when you exceed the tier, you're pushed up into the next tier. If that happens, it's not like it's a minor change, it's a big change, because all the rates have just changed, all the requirements. So for example, on my film, we're in the top end of the top tier of low budget. It's the low budget contract with a diversity incentive where my cap's out at $3 million. And I'm already at about 2.85. So I have about $150,000 leeway. But let's say now that insurance is going to cost me $250,000 more.
There you go.
I'm pushed over the 3 million, which puts me to the full budget contract, where it will raise my overall budget by almost 20%. And now 3 million won't make the film. It's going to take 4.5. And what do I do now? I can't just start raising more money and go start all over again. Right. So that's what's going to hold up the lower budgets, because until they know, we're hoping that the union, and it's not just SAG-AFTRA, it's all the unions that are involved in these new protocols, but they might come up with a plan saying, okay, that those insurance costs will be outside of your contract, so they won't affect that cap.
But that's for the unions to decide. That's for legal situations. When the doors open, we're not thinking, okay, that's great, let's go to the movies. We're talking about remodeling the entire entertainment industry when you really get down to it.
The ones that will be affected at least are the studios, because they've all been pushing anyway now to make $100+ million films. So if they got to add another million, it's not a big problem.
Right.
It's not just the tiny budgets, the under 3 million, but what about somebody's making a film 5-7 million? It's a big change. And how do we deal with it? And meanwhile, everything's on hold. And another factor is, if you are an established actor and you've got your nice home and you've got money and you've got lots of residuals coming in, what's your hurry to go back to work? Do you think, Tom Hanks is worried if he doesn't work anymore this year? And they don't want to endanger their business by going back to work too soon and getting sick.
Right.
So even though all the indications are filming will start beginning in September, I don't think we're going to really see a big increase until probably the spring. And that's what I'm prepared for. If somebody comes up and says, hey, I got the money for you, we got to shoot in October, we'll get to work on it. But the reality is I probably will be looking at spring, assuming I can raise the money.
So we're looking... Wow. On one side, if we wanted to be optimistic, we could say, okay, there's so many opportunities. There's so many things that could change that will make it more accessible, that will make even even social distancing possible in terms of filmmaking. We see opportunities for indie film. We see all these great opportunities, but at the same point, we see all of these things that have to be prepared before we even get there. So we really are on that precipice, and we don't know which way we're going to fall.
And it is incumbent on everyone who's trying to get a project made to start thinking about all the ends, ifs, and buts, and how you're going to prepare for it, so that when it happens, you can say, okay, I'm ready. I can go that way. I can go that way. That's what we've been doing as best we can.
You have been doing it the best that I have seen.
But you've just got to be prepared. That's one of the things as a producer. As I mentioned before, that we have that. It's 3 million is the actual budget to make the film. We have to be under 3 million for the union. And then we have an extra raise of 500,000, and that's that marketing money. And another problem I find a lot of independents do is they don't have enough money to finish their film. They think, oh, I'm going to get that tax benefit. That state's going to be back the money, and then I'm going to use that money to go and post-production my film. Except the state says, no, that money has to go back to your investors. So then what they do is they wind up getting what's called a gap loan. against what that investment would be to put the money into the film. And then they factor in, well, what's it going to cost me to go to Sundance or to Cannes or to the American film market, to sell the film. When I talk marketing, I'm not talking about I'm going to put it in a movie theater and advertise it. I'm talking about marketing it to the people who will buy and distribute the film.
Sure, sure. I had one film that I worked on that went to Cannes, and the filmmaker retired right after making it. So I gather that alone, that was her pinnacle, and that was enough, I think.
This is an actor story. I did a film many years ago called New York Cop. It was Mira Sorvino's second film, I think, and never got residuals. It kind of just disappeared. And then when somebody said, "Oh, I saw you last night on TV," it's like, "What? Yeah, you're New York Cop." It's like, where's that playing? Anyway, it got sold from a distributor to a distributor to a distributor, and the final owner of the film went bankrupt. So right now, nobody really owns the film, and yet it's getting played like on Showtime. So, and I've even had the union look into it. They said the problem is there's nobody they can go after to assume the film because they don't know who owns it.
Oh my God!
There's all kinds of stories, and I love filmmakers. I love the creativity, imagination. I'm a little bit, everybody's either left-sided or right-sided brain. I'm kind of like both sides. I see both. I think creatively, but then I think, all right, business-wise, how do I make the creative side work? And I just find a lot of people don't think that. There was a filmmaker years ago, crowdfunding, raise money on Indiegogo to make a film. And I put up, I don't remember, $30 or something. A friend of mine was in the film. It took 7 years before the film got made. Because he got it made, he didn't have the money to do post-production. And then when I finally saw it, I was like, can I have my $30 back? Because it was pretty and that's another thing that a filmmaker can do as far as the strategy. And I'm looking into this now, and that's what's called crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Which is not, well, it could be people saying, hey, here's $50 I'll give you because you're my friend. But it's more about getting people to put money up now, pre-sale money, or basically, I'll give you $100 and then I'll get a DVD of the film when it's done.
Right.
And then there's the new government rules allows you to actually reach out to investors, and they can actually invest money through crowdfunding. So they can say, yeah, here's $20,000. I'm now an investor. There are legal documents you have to have. We have that. We mentioned earlier the private placement memorandum, but there's one variation of that called the 506C, which allows you to publicly solicit for funds. Technically, legally, you cannot go onto Facebook and say, I'm looking for investors on my film. You could actually get in trouble for that.
Really?
For real. You can say, I'm looking for people to donate money, but not investors. If you want investors, you have to have that private placement that allows you to publicly solicit for investors, because now you're falling under certain rules to prevent scams and all those other problems, which include that the investors get reasonable paperwork, and you're using investors that can lose their money, and they're considered, educated and all that. So again, wow. And you got to have a lawyer to do with this. And when you're starting up, if you're going to do it right, now again, if you're doing that little finance film, you can skip some of that. But if you're going to be trying to find general investors, you got to start with a lawyer. And now you're talking anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000. Without exaggeration, we've added up our total expenses so far in megaballs. We are just at about $65,000, and that's my money and my business partner's money over a couple of years.
Wow. Wow.
And I want to see that back. I got other movies I want to make. I want to make a good one.
Marc, thank you so much. I thought this was going to be a really great, fun chat about your film, and maybe we'll get some people interested in here. Little did I know I'd walk away with a master's degree in filmmaking from you. Wow, thank you so much for sharing that information. I'm going to make sure that our listeners know, and now our viewers, know exactly about the movie, the website, everything like that.
It's megaballsmovie.com.
There you go.
And I'll leave you with statistic because this is about the lottery. And interesting enough, during this whole pandemic, I would pass lottery stores and people are in there buying their lotteries. You have a better chance of being killed on the way to buying your ticket than you do of winning. Which about at the same odds of making a successful movie. But what the
Thank
hell?
you. You know what? I was thinking of a clever line. Thank you. You just handed me that clever line. Wow. I'm going to make sure everyone hears all about this movie. I'm writing an article about the 24 awards that the screenplay has gotten. We now have a two-part interview here, so I'll make sure this is seen. I'm going to scream this to the rafters. Because it's a great movie. It's a great movie. It's a lot of fun. I had a real blast reading it, a real blast seeing it. Really great. You're like a surgeon in terms of how precise you are in terms of everything you need for this.
Well, I can use, if there's anybody out there, I would love to have another producer with experience on their team. And I should also thank you for your help and support and helping us promote it and helping at the reading, because it's always good to have nice people like you in a corner.
And I'll scream as loud as I can, as often as I can. Great film, great guy, brilliant. Definitely needs to get done. Marc, thank you so much, and we will definitely chat about the next level of Mega Balls when the mega doors finally open.
Yeah, and I'm buying lottery tickets, so who knows?
Unless you get killed on the way there. Thanks, Marc.
Thank you, Jay.
Ciao.